All right, so really? Really? Now you want to beep? Okay. So anyway, GoPro Studio is a lot different than what you're used to. It's, how do I put it? Buggy, slow. Yeah. Yeah, those are the two big things. Stop it. Anyway, maybe I should put that in silent, huh? So anyway, where was I? So yeah, GoPro Fusion Studio is just, it's a unique bird. Let's dig into it. First things first, start up Fusion Studio. 1.1, make sure it's 1.1. If it's 1.0, you're not gonna have a good time, it's gonna suck. All right, so once you start it up, you're gonna get this. And this is gonna give you your two different options to either connect to your Fusion or just find your files. And so if you copied your data over, hopefully what you do is you create two folders, one called back, one called front, and inside of them are just direct copies of what you got inside of those SD cards. And so what you do is you take this guy, you say add media, and you're gonna wanna go ahead and go to your folder, and it was the 15th. And so we're just gonna say 115, you select the top level of that. That way it looks inside of both front and back cameras. You hit open. It goes through the previews and all that good stuff. And if there's a problem with any of the files, it's gonna yell at you with this big red bar on the very top. Haven't had too many of these go bad, but I would think I'd say about 5% of my shooting, there's been something wrong with at least one of them. And it could be simple things like you press the shutter on and then you recorded it for a second, you turned it off, and it just wasn't long enough for it to actually get all the data it needed in order for it to be used in Fusion Studio, and so it'll freak out. I think this is just because of a previous render I was doing before, so no biggie, so we'll close that out. So it's gonna generate previews, and what it does when it generates previews is you have a front camera and a back camera. Front and a back camera, and that front and back camera doesn't look anything like what you would expect in a 360. So what it does is, well, I guess it may be what you expect. But what it happens is you take this guy, this is gonna be, this is the back, and let's go ahead and pull the front over, and that's what it looks like. And so you have two different camera angles showing, you know, the 180 degrees each. And so what it does, it goes through and it generates previews and it stitches those together very quick-like, and you're off and running to be able to do your rendering and your editing. So one thing to note, if you've got a super long video, we're talking like, I think the longest I've done so far is like an hour and 20 minutes or so. It took over 8 hours to generate that render, just a preview render, just so I can look at it, edit it, and then export it out on whatever I wanted with that. So it sucks. So just be prepared. If they're short clips, like, you know, under 10, 20 minutes, then they're fine. It shouldn't take too long. It may take 20, 30 minutes to get it, you know, generate those previews. But the point is, the more you have on that card, the longer it's going to take to generate previews. So just be aware of that when you're shooting. All right, so once that's done, you should see this guy should be doing its thing, and then here in a moment it'll be done. There it is, get ready, 5 items found, all right. And so we're just gonna start with the first one. And so the first one is literally just a static shot. There's nothing much to it. It's just tracking people going over jumps and over at Keystone. Okay, so you can do simple things with this. Once you select your clip, you can change the yaw, the pitch, and the roll. And it just really kind of helps you stabilize your shot to make it look the way you want. You know, if you want it to look like that, you can make it look like that. It's cool. If you want it to make it look like that, you don't look like that. It's cool. But the point is that it allows you to figure out how you want to orient your shot. Couple things to note. A stabilization option here. First things first, if you click none, it'll literally just kind of look like so. And so it makes you go through and you kind of set it up the way you want to. It doesn't use any of the gyroscopes or accelerometers or anything it uses from a software standpoint to stabilize the footage. And if nobody's seen this yet, please go and look at the GoPro Fusion product review. And I'll go ahead and put it right, where would it be? Right there. Oh, it'll be right there, right there. So be sure to go check that out. That way you really understand what it is I'm talking about. You also have anti-shake. And so anti-shake, what that does, orients the camera to the person holding it. So it'll stabilize back and forth all day long, and it will stabilize to holding the camera, versus full stabilization, where if you hit that button, what that does is that stabilizes you to the horizon. So if you're doing a run, or if you're going down a mountain, or you're mountain biking or snowboarding or what have you, what you'll see is out in the distance, you'll see the horizons with the mountains and everything all nice and pretty. And what you'll have to do is select full stabilization. And so when you do that, it will go ahead and lock that horizon in one place. And so it stabilizes the horizon. And so you holding the camera are moving around like crazy, but as far as the viewer is concerned, it's fully stabilized and it doesn't shake. And so it's more of a gimbal-like approach, and that's more what everybody's used to, especially if you're trying to do real 360 stuff. But for most people, I would assume that they're going to use this camera and use what's called overcapture and just create a traditional aspect ratio perspective type of shot with the 360 camera. And so we'll go through that here in a minute as well. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about the stabilization. We have tested it intensely. And I've compared it to the Karma Grip with the Hero 6 and some other gimbals that are out there, the Evo gimbals that you can use with the older Heroes and the Session and that kind of stuff. This has no gimbal need whatsoever. It fully stabilizes everything beautifully. And I'll show you some examples here through some of the B-roll. Roll it. So you want to go ahead and create that shot, right? And so this shot is in a static position. It's got people jumping over it. And so we'll play it through real quick just to kind of show what we're talking about. This software does need a decent graphics card. And so I'm using a Mac Pro with 2 D700s in it. It'll only use one during the render process, but it does do accelerated rendering now versus 1.0 that didn't. It was all software through your CPU, and it sucked so bad. So check it out. Once this thing actually loads up, it'll play correctly. And so there you're getting a full 30 frames. It looks nice, looks clean. You'll start seeing people start jumping here in a moment. Wait for it, wait for it. And right about there. There we go. So there's one guy. And there's another guy. Woo! Looks kind of weird, but cool. There's a nice little 360. I like that 360. So let's play with that. Oh yeah. So we're gonna play with that 360 shot. Or with the 360 jump, which was this guy right there. So what we're gonna do is create our in and out points. So there's our in point. We're gonna play that through. Woo! And he landed. All right, there's our out point. So you just drag those little guys over there. Now you've created your in and your out point. Now the next thing you want to do is decide what kind of shot you're looking for. If you're looking for a regular 360 shot, then you just simply color correct or flatten it out if you're going to use it in post or what have you, and then you're off and running. But for this tutorial, we're just going to go ahead and just stick to Fusion. We'll be doing another one here soon that talks about how to take this footage into Premiere and actually do some pretty cool shots with it. So, all right, so next up is you want to go ahead and hit this button over here, which is your settings button. You'll hit here, and this allows you to adjust the shadows, highlights, and you know, all the things that you need in order to make this shot look more cinematic or more 360 like or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? So let's see if we can get this to balance just a little bit, which is a little interesting to do without any vector scopes, but it's all good. So you have the GoPro color profile, which everybody's already used to, and then you have a flat color profile. That flat color profile is very similar to ProTune or Log or that kind of stuff, to where it takes all the shadows and the highlights and it muddies them down and flattens them out. That way in post, when you're using Premiere or Final Cut or what have you, you can go through and you know, get more information out of that. Make it awesomer. You know, that's kind of stuff. It's cool. So. But since we're just doing this in Fusion, we're just going to go ahead and keep the GoPro color profile, make small adjustments, and call it a day. So once this is done, you can go ahead and say add to the render queue, boom, and it'll say, what do you want to do? Do you want to edit this? Do you want to make it Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo? Do you want 360 audio, stereo? Choose your resolution, and you're off and running. So now we're going to do this thing called overcapture. So overcapture takes this 360 footage and turns it into a traditional type of shot, a 16:9 or a square or 4:3, well, you know, whatever you want. They give you the options to use what you want to do. So you hit over capture and you select right here your ratio. What are you looking for? A square, 4:3, 16:9. Do you want to do a little planet or do you want to do a fisheye effect? And so we're going to say we want to do a 16:9, and little planet can be changed around as necessary. So it lets you go way out or bring it way in or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So for example, if we were to, you know, play this through, kind of cool, or say we want to go ahead and we want to change this around and turn it into a fisheye effect. Well, now we've got our roll, our pitch, our yaw, and so on and so forth. But we lose our field of view, which kind of stinks with the fisheye effect. Now I know this looks really low quality, but the thing to remember is that this is a low quality preview that you're working off of, so it's like using a proxy in a sense. So you got to make sure that when you're doing these types of shots, that even though it looks bad, once it exports out, it will export out these overcapture shots as a 1080p shot, not as a 5K shot, not as a 2K shot, but as a 1080p shot. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to go back to Little Planet because it gives you a little more flexibility to use with Little Planet. And so I can take this guy and I can move him this way, and kind of move him this way. And so we're looking at this again. So you kind of get this the way you want it, and you can also drag this around with your mouse as well, bringing it in. And once you kind of get your shot figured out, you say, that's what I want to do. I think that's my shot. So once you get your shot, then all you got to do is say add to render queue, and we'll say add, go to render queue. It says we can go into the settings, and we're going to just do an H264 2K. We'll leave the dewarp parallax on, and we will render it out. So the thing about the render process is it's slow, it sucks, uses all your CPU, uses your GPU as well, but it does render out relatively quickly. I mean, if you're doing editing shots, then it takes forever. If you're doing you know, small little clips like this, it goes pretty quick, so you really don't have that much to worry about. All right, so it shows it's done. So we'll go ahead and open this up and bring it in, and here's our final. This is what it looks like. Woo! And there you go. So yeah, that's pretty much all it takes, is just going through there, tweaking your settings, figuring out what you're trying to accomplish, and then get to the end result, and then render it out. If you want to do more editing, or you want to get different types of shots or do more keyframes, that kind of stuff, well then Premiere's your only option for there. And the good thing is that GoPro did release 2 different plugins for it. So all you got to do is go in there, put the plugins into Premiere, and then you can do the same type of shot and keyframe it out. You can pause it, you can have it rotate around, you can do all kinds of neat little things. But keep in mind, it does take a while to export out these videos, and I will show that in my next tutorial. Peace.